When I was a girl, there was a fig tree near our home, a great, ancient tree, and beside it, a stream. The water was so clean, so pure, that you could see the pebbles at the bottom. I would spend hours there, watching the tadpoles, trying to pick up what I thought were beads but were really frog eggs. In my culture, the Kikuyu, we did not cut fig trees. They were sacred. They belonged to the earth, not to us. Years later, I came home. The fig tree was gone. Someone had cut it down. And the stream where I had played as a child, had dried up. The water had simply vanished. That is when I understood. The trees and the water were connected. The trees and the soil were connected. The trees and the food were connected. Everything was connected. And they were destroying all of it.
Welcome back to After Hours. I am Vaughn. Tonight I am telling you a story about a woman who planted trees. That does not sound like much. It does not sound dangerous. It does not sound like the kind of thing that would get you arrested, beaten unconscious, whipped with clubs, tear-gassed, and called crazy by the president of your own country. But it did, because the trees were never just trees. In 1977, a Kenyan woman named Wangari Maathai looked at the landscape of her country and saw a catastrophe unfolding. The forests were disappearing. Tea and coffee plantations had swallowed the indigenous woodlands. Women in rural villages were walking further and further every day to collect firewood. Streams were drying up. Soil was eroding. Crops were failing. The government did not care. The politicians were selling the forests to developers. They were paving the parks. They were building towers on public land. And anyone who spoke up was silenced. Wangari Maathai was not the kind of woman who could be silenced. She was the first woman in East Africa to earn a PhD. She had studied at the University of Pittsburgh, at the University of Gießen in Germany, and at the University of Nairobi. She was brilliant, she was stubborn, and she was furious. So she did something simple. She asked women to plant trees. And that simple act started a revolution that would topple a dictatorship, restore a nation, and win the Nobel Peace Prize. This is episode 9, The Tree. Wangari Maathai was born on April 1, 1940, in the village of Ihite in the Nyeri district of central Kenya, the Central Highlands, green, fertile country. Her father was a tenant farmer. Her mother taught her to respect the soil, to understand that the land was not something you owned, it was something you cared for. As a girl, she was given a small plot of land to grow her own food. She learned the rhythm of planting and harvest. She learned that the fig trees near the streams were not to be touched. They were sacred in Kikuyu tradition. They held the water and the soil. They kept the streams alive. Her older brother persuaded their parents to send her to school. She attended St. Cecilia's boarding school at the Maathai Catholic Mission, where she learned English and was rated first in her class. Then Laredo High School in Limuru, the only Catholic girls' school in Kenya. In 1960, she was selected for the Kennedy Airlift, 300 Kenyan students given scholarships to study in the United States. The program was organized by a young Kenyan political leader named Tom Mboya, and funded in part by $100,000 from the Kennedy Foundation. Harry Belafonte, Jackie Robinson, Sidney Poitier, and Martin Luther King Jr. all supported the effort. Wangari flew to Kansas. She earned a biology degree at Mount St. Scholastica College. She earned a master's degree at the University of Pittsburgh. She studied in Germany. And then she went home. She came home to earn her PhD at the University of Nairobi, the first woman in East Africa to do so. She joined the faculty. She chaired the Department of Veterinary Anatomy. And she looked around and saw that Kenya was being stripped bare. In 1977, Wangari Maathai did something that nobody had tried before. She went to the women, not the politicians, not the scientists, not the international organizations, the women. the ones who walked miles to collect firewood, the ones who watched their soil wash away, the ones who lived closest to the crisis. She told them they did not need a degree to plant a tree. They did not need permission. They did not need funding. They needed seeds, soil, and their own two hands.
You do not need a forester to show you how to plant a tree. You know how to plant. You have been planting your whole lives. Plant a tree the same way you would plant any crop. If it survives for 3 months, I will pay you.
She called it the Green Belt Movement. Women were organized to plant lines of trees, green belts, around farms, schools, and churches. For every tree that survived past 3 months, the women were paid. The movement was simultaneously environmental restoration and economic empowerment. It gave women income. It gave them purpose. And it gave them power. The numbers grew. Hundreds of women, then thousands, then tens of thousands. Over the life of the movement, more than 51 million trees were planted. More than 30,000 women were trained in forestry, beekeeping, and food processing. Her husband could not handle it. Maathai, whom she had married in 1969, filed for divorce. He told the court she was too educated, too strong, too successful, too stubborn, and too hard to control.
She is too strong-minded for a woman. I am unable to control her.
The divorce was granted. It was brutal in public. And when Wangari demanded she stop using his surname, she did something defiant. She kept the name. But she added an extra letter. Maathai became Maathai, a small act of rebellion that said, "I will not be erased." But planting trees was about to become much more dangerous than a divorce. In October of 1989, Wangari Maathai learned that President Daniel Arap Moi's government was planning to build a 60-story skyscraper in the middle of Uhuru Park, the most beloved public park in Nairobi. The building would house the headquarters of Moi's political party, the Kenya Times newspaper, shopping malls, and parking for 2,000 vehicles. The cost was $200 million. Uhuru Park, the name means freedom in Swahili, and the president wanted to pave it. Maathai wrote a letter. She sent it to the managing director of the Kenya Times, to the office of the president, to the United Nations Environment Program, and to every international organization she could reach. She ordered them to stop. The government responded the way authoritarian governments always respond. On Independence Day, December 12, 1989, President Moi addressed the nation on television.
That woman Maathai. She should be a proper woman in the African tradition, and respects men and be quiet.
He called her a madwoman, a threat to the order and security of the country. The government evicted the Greenbelt movement from its office. Maathai had to run the entire organization from her living room. But the international media had picked up the story. Foreign investors saw a government using $200 million to build a vanity tower while its people starved. They pulled their money. The project collapsed. The fence around the construction site was quietly removed in the middle of the night. Uhuru Park was saved, and Moi never forgave her. On February 28, 1992, Wangari Maathai joined a group of mothers at a corner of Uhuru Park, directly across the street from Nyayo House. Nyayo House. The building with secret torture chambers in its basement, where political prisoners were beaten, given electric shocks, and held in flooded cells. These mothers had sons who had been arrested and imprisoned for speaking out against Moi's government. Students, journalists, lawyers, human rights workers. 52 young men, locked away without trial. The mothers called the spot Freedom Corner, and they began a hunger strike.
We will sit here until you release our sons. We will not eat, we will not leave. You will have to kill us, or free them.
They sat for 4 days. On March 3rd, the police moved in. They beat the women with batons. They fired gunshots into the air. They hurled tear gas into the tent. Wangari Maathai was clubbed unconscious and taken to the hospital. But the mothers did something that stopped the police in their tracks. 3 of the mothers stripped their clothing. They bared their bodies and screamed at the officers.
What kind of government is this that beats women? Kill us! Kill us now! We shall die with our children.
In Kikuyu tradition, a mother burying herself before men of her children's generation is a devastating curse. The police turned and left. The mothers regrouped at All Saints Cathedral, 1 block away, where the priests granted them sanctuary. By June of that year, the first political prisoners were released. By January of 1993, every single mother had been reunited with her son. But Maathai was not done. In January of 1999, she led a protest to save Karura Forest in northern Nairobi from developers. 200 security guards attacked the demonstrators with machetes, whips, and bows and arrows. Maathai was hit with a club and suffered a serious head wound. Blood ran down her face. She did not stop. She never stopped. On December 27, 2002, Wangari Maathai was elected to the Kenyan parliament from the Tetu constituency. She won 98% of the vote. The woman Moi had called a madwoman was now a legislator. In January 2003, she was appointed Assistant Minister for Environment and Natural Resources. And then, on October 8, 2004, the phone rang. The Norwegian Nobel Committee announced that the Nobel Peace Prize would be awarded to Wangari Maathai for her contribution to sustainable development, democracy, and peace. She was the first African woman to receive the prize. She was the first laureate honored primarily for environmental work. The chairman of the Nobel Committee, Ole Danbolt Mjos, said it plainly.
It is clear that with this award we have expanded the term peace to encompass environmental questions.
On December 10, 2004, Wangari Maathai walked into Oslo City Hall in a bright orange gown with a matching headband. African drums played. A Kenyan dance troupe performed. Over 1,000 guests rose to their feet. The Norwegian royal family was in attendance. And the woman who had been beaten unconscious, tear-gassed, whipped, arrested, called crazy, called a madwoman, told to be quiet, told to respect men, told to sit down, stood at the podium and spoke to the world.
In the course of history, there comes a time when humanity is called to shift to a new level of consciousness, to reach a higher moral ground, a time when we have to shed our fear and give hope to each other. That time is now. When we plant trees, we plant the seeds of peace and seeds of hope.
She used to tell a story about a hummingbird. A great forest is on fire. All the animals, the elephant, the giraffe, the lion, stand watching, overwhelmed, paralyzed. But a tiny hummingbird flies to the stream, picks up 1 drop of water in its beak, and carries it to the fire. The other animals laugh. What can 1 drop do against a wildfire? And the hummingbird answers, I am doing the best I can. Wangari Maathai